Y'all, today's show is so good.
But number one, I've never seen an intro like that.
It is my hope and desire that not only will episode 30 still be fun, but episode 300 will be even more fun. You were made for something great, so go and be awesome.
Ten seconds remaining.
Hello, and welcome to the show. My name is Renee Hastings, and I'm your host of Renee Speaks. Y'all, I am so excited for today's guest. Today's guest is Walter Gaynor II, and he is a media strategist, podcast executive, and founder of Boss Locks. He helps brands and creators grow their audiences and turn content into revenue through smart media and distribution strategies. Walter also helped launch and grow Urban One's podcast network, working with shows like Rickey, Smiley, On the Spot, and The Daily Play with Joy Taylor. Y'all, put your hands together for Walter Gaynor II.
Thank you for having me. What's going on, Renee? How you doing?
I am fantastic, Walter. Thank you so much for joining me on our show today. It is just such a thrill to have you here. I can't believe we were introduced by this wonderful human named Tyler Sherman.
Yeah, shout out to Tyler.
Shout out to Tyler. He is the most connected young man I have met in quite some time.
Yeah.
And I met him through Ramon Ray, who was a recent guest on the show and hosted an event here in Atlanta called the Genius Talks Mastermind. Some people may have seen some social media from those that experience, but that's where I met Tyler. And we were talking about podcasting and just what each of us does for a living and that sort of thing. And he said, "Oh, do you need guests for your show? I know people. I can help you get guests for your show." And I said, "Sure, I would love guests for our show." And he said, "Well, you have to call Walter. Walter is all about that podcast space, and he's really, really good. So you should talk to him." So I have to say, Walter, I am so grateful to Tyler for making this introduction. And then when we got to know each other, a week or so ago, come to find out we are neighbors. Like you live right up the road. I could walk to your house practically.
Basically, you need to get your steps in. Come on over.
Right. Exactly. So I'm just so grateful and glad to have you now as a part of my podcast journey to help educate our audience of business owners of what it means to be a podcaster and what is there relevance to that for their business and how do they know when they're ready. We're going to dive into all of these things because podcasting is becoming a more popular way of marketing businesses to the masses. So let's definitely dive into that. But before we do, tell me, Walter, because I don't think we got into this before, what got you into podcasting? Like, did you grow up in this age of loving video and computers or talking or, how did it start?
Oh, yeah. I think my earliest memory of a computer, my dad, he was big on, he's big in servers, computers. He used to serve in the Air Force, and he is the one who set up like the whole network infrastructure for the Air Force base in Charleston. So I grew up with the association of computers and how to fix them. So I guess there's always been a part of me that's been into tech, just at an early age. And then I think I even remember early on, just when I was like, when you're little, you're trying to fall asleep, but you can't. They always say to count sheep. And I didn't really do that. What I did, I counted the different TV networks that existed and all the different channels that they had. It was just entertaining to me. So I've always been fascinated in media, technology, but podcasting was something like I heard about it when it first came out. I thought I was like, why are people listening to podcasts? I don't understand that. But that was back in the 2000s. But Gimlet's podcast called Startup was the first one that really hooked me into being an audio listener. I was going on these commutes, going to college after break and back home. It was a 6 hour commute all the way out in Virginia. And so I got tired of music after a while and didn't want to listen to the radio because of all like the connection and everything. I was like, I don't know these stations out here. So podcasting was a thing that entertained me on these long road trips and just fell in love with it. So just started becoming a fan and it helped me to stay awake on these long windy roads. So yeah.
Wow. And that is such a great resource for things exactly like that, because we got truckers all over the road who stay
Mhm.
on the road,
Yeah.
and they're always on, always listening. Like you said, music gets boring, and you get in a place where you don't have signal or good
Yeah.
radio stations. It's all
I'm tired of that
country
static. That
static. Yeah.
yeah. I didn't have Sirius at the time. So yeah.
Right, exactly. And nothing against country music. I'm just saying it's not exactly my thing.
Yeah.
And so it's when though, so I understand it because it's so important to, you know, be educated, number one, and podcasts have, tons of information to get you knowledgeable on things that you didn't know that you even needed to know, and then to hear people's stories of their different experiences of what they've been through and how they may have overcome challenges. I mean, it's just depending on whatever podcast you're listening to, there's something for everybody. And that, so I'm glad that you discovered that at such a young age and that you had this long commute to expose you to these things so that now you can be here today sharing with us the power of podcasting.
It's
So,
funny how life works.
right, exactly. Funny how life works. And so, but when did you realize though that podcasting could really be like a whole business, like a serious business opportunity?
So 20, maybe 13, 14 is when I was listening podcasts and that very first podcast. So Gimlet, they're not as known anymore, but at that period of time, they were known for creating very kind of narrative and story driven podcasts, high quality. I would say like NPR, they were in the midst of NPR as far as like
Mhm.
quality of audio podcasting. And the first podcast that I listened to was called it was about the founder of Gimlet starting Gimlet. So he took you on a narrative journey to going to investors and building this whole podcast business. So I think what I fell in love with was the storytelling, but it was a story about building a podcast business. So I think just off the bat, I knew that it could be, but I would say that Spotify's big investment into podcasting with the Joe Budden podcast and later on just acquiring all these different podcast companies including Gimlet actually and Anchor FM that really taught me that okay there's a even bigger presence. And then the whole pandemic boom happened as well. So it's like all these
Mhm.
different things happen. I've even applied for certain accelerators that helped you to learn the business of podcasting. There's a lot of different signals that podcasting was a serious business. I came
Mhm.
into it from a listener, enthusiast, and then a hobby practitioner. Learned how to do podcasting in college as well a little bit. Yeah, there was a lot of various factors I think prior to the pandemic, but the pandemic is really when it showed the huge demand for it and a lot of money that's being put into it because it was such like the new kind of thing, quote unquote.
Right, exactly. Because people had to find a way to spend their time. They had all this time on their hands and nothing to do with it. So yeah, it makes sense that that would be when it would explode and take off. But I heard that there's a statistic today that most new podcasters don't get past their first 10 episodes. Did you
Yeah,
know that?
Oh yeah, I've heard it. I've experienced it too. I struggled to get past the first 10. It was like, woof, man. You know what it was actually? It was actually around. So that's a pod fade, right? And it happens where a majority of the podcasts that have been created don't make it past that 7 episode mark, that 7 to 10 era. That's like the first death trap. And what usually happens, what I've seen, is like a couple of things. There's expectations that okay, I'm about to make it big and then end up on Renee's podcast, talking about podcasts and live and everything. There's expectation of doing that. Even myself, I was like, where's my invite to the Breakfast Club? I started this thing. Where is it? And then another thing is the cost of podcasting. Now, podcasting doesn't have to cost you anything at all, but depending on what your expectations are and what you want to do, there can be a heavy investment in it. I know some people are spending like 10,000 an episode. They shouldn't, but they do.
Wow.
Um, and it's very high quality production.
Mhm.
So if you don't have the budget to keep that going, it could be very expensive very quick. So whether it's expectations, cost, and the third one is time. If you don't have a team behind you, it could be very costly. I love coming into this experience here because it's not just you. You have a really solid team with you, and not everybody has that. And that can be a challenge due to bandwidth and capacity and burnout. So those three factors, it affects everybody. It doesn't matter if you're like a famous celebrity or just someone just starting off. I've seen it come for everybody. It's a real issue. It sounds ridiculous, but it's a real issue.
No, yeah, I get it, but because those unmet expectations, lack of time, and the money. Yeah, those
Yeah.
are 3 very real factors that can keep somebody from being able to progress in this podcasting journey. And Isaiah Marcus is with us today. Thanks for joining us, Isaiah. And he says that podcasting and TikTok really took off during the pandemic. People were craving connection and content they could consume from home. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. 100%.
You know
So,
why it took off for real though? It's because I think people always look at the like, oh, it just all of a sudden happened. But there was a like podcasting been around for decades at that point, but there was already like a trend upwards. Like even TikTok as well. TikTok acquired a company called I think it was called like Musically, where people
mm,
were creating these like four grid videos of themselves singing and they would like harmonize with each
mm,
other and everything. And so that's why like a lot of stuff that uh on TikTok you see a lot of dancing and music content because it's like a lot of it was based off of that at the
mm,
beginning. um and yeah, so by the time the pandemic comes when people are looking for something to do, there's already this surge of activity happening in the podcast and TikTok space, and that's why it boomed. And so really it was just like a continuation of what was happening, but then there was a higher demand for it. And then that's, I think, especially where video kind of came into play because for a lot of people, audio was happening during commutes and they
right.
weren't commuting as much, but they were sitting and watching and stuff. So that's my
Yeah.
little nerd moment. Just want to share real quick. Just yeah,
No, I love it. I love it. The history of things and how things evolve just makes it that much more interesting. And I love that you are so knowledgeable in this space and able to help us to get a greater understanding of where it started, where it is today, and even maybe later talk about where it's going. Because it is definitely here to stay, and video is definitely here to stay as well. And shout out to our good friend Chris of Cast Ahead.
Chris.
Hey, Renee and Walter, great to see the legends live today. Thank you so much
Mm,
for joining us, Chris. Walter, I have to give a shout out to Chris, more than just a little
absolutely.
bit, because were it not for Chris, we would not be in this podcast space at all, like at all.
Mm,
Chris met me on a show he was producing and learned about what we do at Executive Help Now. And he's like, hey, can I show you what I do? And you kind of take some of these things off my plate for me. And I was like, yeah, let's have a conversation. So he showed us the ropes and we were able to help him out. And he has been a loyal ambassador and cheerleader for us and helping us along the way and teaching us everything we know. So I am so grateful to Chris because were it not for Chris, you and I would not be here today. We absolutely would not. So I have to give him the props that he deserves for exposing us
Man,
to this
that
amazing life.
that's special, man. That's special, Chris. I feel like Chris probably has a lot of those stories of people he's helped out, man, throughout the year. Look at he say he takes zero credit, man. Nah, I mean, honestly, I will say actually, it says a lot for someone to actually trust someone else with their podcast and business, what they the thing that goes out in the world. For a lot of people, we're talking about podcasting as a business, right? And of course, people rush to the monetization of it with ads and everything, but people don't talk enough about podcasting as a marketing tool. And for I helped a company actually once where they were interested in podcasting as a marketing tool, but it was like, oh yeah, let's try it out, and it became their most dominant um, marketing engine that they had. And
Mhm.
that's just so it's a lot to trust someone to take on their marketing stuff. So that's actually a big shout out to what you're doing as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely shout out to Chris, man. Shout out to Chris.
Woo-hoo! Yay, Chris. Where's our applause for Chris? We need some applause for Chris. 'Cause yeah, and he's so modest. I take zero credit for what he eventually built here, Renee. Oh, you're awesome. Chris, you are awesome. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for taking us on this journey. So now, as we get back into talking about further the monetization piece of a podcast,
Mhm.
and thank you for also recognizing that it does take a lot for somebody to turn over their podcast to somebody else to have them produce a show and trust that they capture the vision of what they're trying to accomplish and be able to
Mhm.
show it in a digital way that's intriguing to people that makes them want to stay on and keep listening or keep watching and that sort of thing. So there is an art to this thing. You can't just, you know, jump in front of a camera and a mic and start doing things, saying random things. Although some people seem like they do that and do very well, but for the most part, that's not typically.
Well, they've learned the science of doing that, right? So
There
yeah.
is a science to this, absolutely. But what would you say, though, Walter, is the biggest misconception that people have about making money from a podcast?
Um, there's so many actually. I think people see how other people have made money, and they don't really take a look at the steps that it took beforehand. Like we're talking about like podcasting taking off in the pandemic, but there is a history of podcasting being successful. Means of entertaining, a successful means of doing business. So there's like tried and true trials and errors that existed. Like I mentioned Joe Budden before, but even like a Joe Rogan, two people who are very controversial, but they're just good examples of just a long period of time before things really kind of blew up and everything. But what I would say, kind of two areas in particular, is one on a lot of like entertainment driven podcasts. They're like, okay, we're going to start this, it's going to blow up immediately, everyone's going to love it, advertisers going to come, boom, boom, boom. We all getting rich, and that doesn't always happen.
Right.
I mentioned like the areas that people struggle with before, but sometimes podcasting is a long term game. Like I saw on the banner that you're celebrating 3 years, and that's incredible. And I've seen cases where podcasts truly start to take off after year two, year three. So that's a lot of dedication beforehand. So I think people think like, okay, first 10, 12 episodes is going to be amazing. We're going to get money instantly. And that's not always the case. And then also, I think the other thing that's even more challenging is when that first 3 episodes really start to take off. I see a lot of podcasts when they launch, they have a huge surge of attention, viewership, listenership. It looks like everything's pointing upwards. And then around that 8 episode mark, another thing that I didn't mention before, the pod fade isn't just the only thing, but it's like, what do you do when you don't get the same number of viewers and listenerships as you did in episode one? And that can start to deteriorate like your belief in it as well. So when it comes to monetization, that can happen at day one. I've seen it happen. I helped a channel reach the eligibility requirements for monetization on YouTube within like the first 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks of launching. That's
Oh,
actually
wow.
surprised me. It actually took off, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes it really does take a long period of time. So it's important to not just look for one way to make money through your podcast. If that's the goal, it's important to
Mhm.
be smart about all the different possible revenue opportunities that exist directly on the podcast, but also using that show as a lead magnet too. So
Right, exactly. I love that you talked about it being a lead magnet for the show and to help people to understand that it isn't an overnight type situation where you're going to be putting out content tomorrow and be making money the next day. That's one of the things that Chris shared with me as well. He said, this is definitely a long game. You don't do this thinking you're going to get rich quick because you're not.
yeah,
Um, are you able to share though what it was that you did with that? Oh, and Malik said he agrees. You can't you can't trust the
it's
monetization,
really
or you
yeah, and
can't
you really
trust
shouldn't rush it either, because you could rush it and start making money in a way that you don't actually feel comfortable with, or you realize it actually costs a lot more to do what you sold as well. So it's like there's also a beauty side with being a long term, which you really get to learn and create system to do things efficiently. So when it is time, you're like, oh, that's light work. Wait, a little host red ad? I don't even need to memorize a script. I could just go. I feel comfortable talking on camera. It's like all these little things that people don't take into consideration. So yeah.
exactly. And the more you do, the better you get. And so I definitely am all about that stick to itiveness. You have to stick with it because you, like you said, you get better at it. It becomes easier. And you're like, oh wait, that's nothing. Whereas on day one, I remember being so nervous, and Chris was actually my first guest on the show, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was so fun and so exciting all at the same time, but I was terrified. And my, backdrop was crazy looking. I mean, it was a hot mess. And Chris said, just imagine you're going to keep getting better and better and better. And then, but Chris has a question for you all. What is your
Mm.
advice for creators who get stuck on the tech and gear?
Follow Chris, ask him questions. He got you. um,
I love that.
yeah, so there's a man I know Chris because of actually we have a lot of different connections, but I think it was Steve Worthy last show that I was on where he saw me, and I think I might have seen him on James Hicks thing or something. I'm not really sure, but Steve Worthy, he's been in podcasts for a while, does a lot of live streaming, and he introduced a concept to me called gas and having gas as a creator, which is a gear acquisition syndrome. And
Okay. Hold on, let's not gas. Gear acquisition syndrome. That's like a whole real thing.
it's a whole real thing, and it's easy to get, especially if you have a budget to invest in it. You're just gonna rush and get everything. So basically, it's
Wow.
like this syndrome where you continue to get gear and more gear, and it's like it's this whole comparison thing, right? It's partly
Mhm.
like, oh, I want this, so I could do this and X, Y, Z. So it's like this excitement, and there's also like this keeping up with the Joneses type of thing too.
Mhm.
Basically, it's continuing to acquire gear for the purpose of whatever it is to produce better content, have higher quality this, to do this easier, but you don't always need it. I
Mhm.
myself had it to an extent, but my budget didn't make me go buy everything. But
Mhm.
I think there's a couple things that people get stuck on. One is to continue to get better equipment, better gear to be able to do things more advanced. But then there's another where it's like I don't even know how to use some of this stuff too. So like I'm talking to this camera. This camera's connected to my computer, and it took me a while to really figure out how to learn it. So I think there's various reasons to get stuck, but the most important thing is just to continue to move forward. My favorite quotes from Arthur Ashe, and I always mess it up when I say it live, but it's like start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And I love that because I think as a creator, it's not important to be perfect. It's important to continue. Every time you ask someone for advice, to say consistency is key. And I
Yeah.
think the reason for that is because it's like practice. It's showing to practice and practice and practice and learn and just experience through doing. Like you could take courses to learn this. That's helpful. You
Mhm.
could study under someone. That's helpful too. But I think it's also it's more helpful to be able to pair what you're learning with actual action and doing. So you could go on these like YouTube rabbit holes, like everything to learn. But if you're not doing, you don't really learn in person. Like I know about ISO on a camera, not because I mean there were some helpful videos and everything, but I learned because like, oh, this footage is trash and I gotta go out and try it again. So I've learned a lot through trial and tribulations. I'm like a I don't know, school of hard knocks, got to learn the hard way sometimes, but there's so many ways to get stuck, and it's helpful to have resources that show you how to use something, but it's also even more helpful to go out and try. Um,
Right.
just do your best.
Right. And so, as two questions around that, then great question. Thank you so much for that, Chris. We also have Amara, who says, I feel seen. I didn't know this had an actual name.
We all got
Yes,
gas, man.
we got gas. Gear acquisition syndrome. Yeah. So, what is so I know that gas is a gear acquisition syndrome, trying to get better, get more and more advanced things. But if someone's just getting started, what would you say is the basic bottom, way of entry to getting started doing a
Oh
podcast?
yeah,
What are the
yeah.
basic things that they need just to get started?
I would say the two thing. Okay, so just about everyone has a smartphone, at least in the US, of some sort, and that's all you really need. Like I know
Mhm.
someone who, someone named Blake, who taught me a lot about podcasting early on. He got to like 10,000 downloads on his podcast just from using his phone.
Wow.
The phone is so powerful, especially now, just the more they invest in this thing
Mhm.
could take you far. Like I do a lot of content with my camera. There's a lot of pros to that because people see it and they take me a little more seriously. But there've been times where I actually can't use my camera because of whatever like that association is with the professional grade. They don't want you to shoot in here. But my phone, it could take not the same quality, but very high quality shots of things as well. So a lot of content I create, I can easily do with my phone and it's easy to edit. There's a lot of free tools out there. So I'll say if you have a phone, that's literally all you need. And you can use free editing apps like CapCut. Meta has a very strong edits app, InShot as well. You could do long form content. I've never done anything longer than like 10 minutes on some of these tools, like
Mm.
5 to 10 minutes, but, that would be an amazing place to start. If you have a computer, like, we're going live on a tool called, StreamYard. I don't know if they have a free plan anymore, but I believe if they do, they have, like, a logo on it, but
Right.
there's no now is, like, the perfect time to start with creating podcasts or content because there's a lot of free resources or low, budget resources that are still very good. Like, a lot of broadcast companies use a lot of tools that are accessible to everyday creators. Like the barrier to entry is to low, and that entry point, you're basically on par with a lot of professional production companies nowadays. So
Right.
yeah, I would suggest starting just with your computer and whatever mic comes with it. Like the laptop mic is not the best quality, but it's enough to get started. And then you could continue to upgrade slowly. In fact, I would say like challenge yourself to only acquire gear once you hit a certain goal or milestone, and do not break off. Don't tread off that path or else you'll end up with gas. That's you get diagnosed real quick. So
Right, right. I love that. Great idea. Start with what you have. You got a phone, you got a laptop or a computer. Start with the mic in your device. I invested in like a $10 ring light. I mean,
and
just
I
for
see
some
you.
right, right.
Yeah,
I'm right here.
I got a couple things, but like I this lamp here, this has
Mhm.
done wonders for me. Like just
Right.
oh
Exactly.
my
The
god.
office lamp. Take it out
Yeah.
the office, bring it, put it on your desk right behind your monitor. Make sure it's shining on your face. You're good.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love it. So, and then the other thing you said, okay, start with what you have. Don't be fancy or you're going to end up with gas.
Hmm.
Gear acquisition syndrome. And if you got the money, you're going to keep on acquiring. So, but, and you also mentioned too that you shoot with your camera and that sometimes when you have a camera, it takes just as much time to learn how to use the camera as you could have produced a whole show by the time you figured out
Yeah.
how to use the camera,
And
right?
cameras are an expensive trap, man. Like you get a camera, like, oh, cool. But then you realize, like, oh, okay, I need something to capture audio. Oh, okay, I need something to capture audio in this type of setting. Oh, okay, I need lighting for this setting and that setting. And then it just goes on and on. Oh, I need a gimbal. Oh, I need it. Oh. So that
Mhm.
is like a gear acquisition trap.
Right.
You just continue to fall into forever. But a phone, you got all
Yeah,
what you need right there for real.
exactly. And so, do you think though that a podcast that's created from a phone would be attractive to sponsors and advertisers?
Yeah, so there's some advertisers, sponsors who invest because they love the quality of the content. I've seen cases where, listenership, viewership wasn't even high, but they just love the look of it. There's others where the look wasn't all that great, but they love the energy that the host brought and still
Mhm.
low listenership and viewership. So those things can be a factor, but I've also seen cases where the quality isn't even all that great, just average, and people come because of the audience that's built. I think that a high end camera is not the deciding factor at all. High end mics aren't the deciding factor at all. It's really what advertisers and stuff are looking for is how s- the potential of being able to get their money back, right? To help with conversions and everything. So your camera can help with that, but not always.
Right. And I was told too that how you sound is more important than how you look
Yeah.
because people who listen to podcasts in the audio only setting, if they're hearing cracking and nonsense, they're gonna switch to another channel or station or video or show. So do you agree with that?
I do. It's disruptive. So that would be one area where I'd say is probably the most important to invest in is the audio. Um
Mhm.
it's just creates there's something interesting about listening to something, right? Even when you're watching something, if you close your eyes and just listen, sometimes I'll do that when editing.
Mhm.
When you listen, it creates this like intimate experience relationship between the creator and the listener. And the
Mhm.
same is true in video, but people just don't consciously realize it. But you could have like a little blur, a little fuzz, a little glitch, but if you can continue to hear clearly what's going on, people will stay to watch. So audio is the most important thing, both in video and audio content.
Mhm.
Um, as there's a huge demand for more video than just audio, I think people are forgetting that. But the people who are successful audio creators can stand, go, bar for bar with these video creators who have all the fancy cameras.
Right. I love how you worded it like an intimate relationship that you have as you're listening to the sound of the podcast. I just had got this visual in my head, like I'm in a closet or in a very small space, and all I hear surrounding me is this voice. And
Yeah.
that is that can be intimate. That can feel very personal, like especially if you're resonating with the message that's being shared. And so, yeah, 100% your sound needs to be on point.
Yes, yes, can't sacrifice that. In fact, my workflow now takes longer because I added in an extra step to add some additional quality assurance to make sure the audio is like as pristine as it could be.
Mhm. Awesome, awesome, that's so good. And so, as we talk about, video and audio podcasts, how important is video in a podcast growth strategy today? Is that everything? I mean, it sounds like you just said some of the audio ones are standing toe to toe with the video.
Yeah, right now we're in this point of time where there's a lot of shifts happening, and a lot of podcast hosting companies are investing in technology to host video content as well.
Mhm.
So importance kind of interesting, right? So and it's based on perspective as well. I don't think the jig is up for audio only podcasts, but if your goal is to scale and grow, video helps with that. So that'd be my answer is like really video is another way to share what you're working on with people. When I
Mhm.
started my podcast, I shared it with my grandma. I told her how to set up, Apple Podcasts and listen. She never did it. And then one day she started talking to me about my podcast. I was like, what you talk like what how did you hear about this? And she actually found it on YouTube. I never told her about YouTube. I didn't even know if she was on YouTube like that, but she found it on YouTube by herself. And that told me that, okay, video can be more accessible than audio, which is kind of interesting. So for me, video podcasting hasn't really like it's been an accessibility thing. I want people to listen or watch however is most convenient to them. So that's my reasoning for investing in video. And it's just, it helps when you're promoting on TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn, even to have video to go with it because it just gives you more to work with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, what would you say is one of the biggest mistakes that podcasters make when they're trying to promote their content? So, we're talking about promoting the content. What are some mistakes that get made? Like, where do you start?
Yeah. One of the most powerful or popular tools when it comes to promoting is Opus Clips. And
Mm,
it's basically using AI to select clips for you and cut them. So all you have to do is go download and post them. There's a
mhm,
lot of really popular ones. Opus Clips, Minvo, Choppity, Descript, Riverside has it now. TikTok has it now. Every single tool has this AI clipping thing. And a lot of
mhm,
people were like, oh, I could have 30 clips from one episode and just publish it all. Boom, I'm flooding the streets, visibility, consistent, posting 6 times a day. But
mhm.
those clips aren't interesting to people because AI has gotten better at finding ways to promote podcasts, but it's not perfect and it doesn't always take into consideration what people are actually looking for and everything. I think it will improve, but I think this over dependence on AI, I
Mm,
understand it, but I actually think it is a mistake. And there's ways to use AI, but I don't think it should be like, oh, AI is going to take care of everything.
right.
Before I mentioned, I don't even know if you asked or if I changed the conversation, but I mentioned like a channel that I got monetized, and it was like basically, I went and edited a clip. We had some other things. Some were generated by AI, some were generated by someone else, but I created my own version of a clip that ended up getting 1 million views on Instagram, on YouTube, like separately on all these
Wow.
different platforms. And that
Oh,
helped with getting us over that monetization. Um, eligibility requirement. That was not relying on AI, but just kind of knowing what the podcast is, what the conversation is, what the moment was that I felt would best relate to people that was already following this person and also people who never heard of this person either, but would help best represent the show, the moment, and people would find interesting. And that is something that AI can do, but humans who know what they're doing can do it better. So,
yeah,
um,
100%, 100%. And I can relate to what you're talking about, these AI generated clips that get selected through like Opus or whatever. Because I've seen some of the things that they've come back with from some of the shows that I've done. And I'm like, we don't have any better clips than that. We had this whole great conversation. Why are these the clips we're using? These are terrible. So I understand. Yeah, you have to be in a part of the process, the human in the loop. HITL is now an acronym that people are getting more and more familiar with, the human in the loop, so that you can actually take the content that you want, that makes the most sense to you, that makes the most sense to your audience, so that you come up with something really, really great and hopefully get to that 1 million views that will help qualify you to for monetization. It's so important to be involved and not just let AI do everything for you, even though it's there and it's available, doesn't mean it's the best way to promote your show or to get your message out. It misses a lot. So, and we have some comments here. Arvid Mora says people love having podcasts on in the background while getting things done. So the audio is important, but also love being able to watch the host and the guest and see their reactions. So yes, 100%. To your point, Walter, audio is super important, but so is having the video as well. So we can't ever forget that part. And Chris says, great points. While being more tactical with the clips is key, still need a human in the loop to create content that is interesting to people. So, yes, absolutely, 100%. The person has, there's got to be a human who can actually understand and comprehend the context of what the message is, because AI is not a human. The AI can't pull that out of the conversation. They don't know the emotion behind some of the words that really make an impact. They just see a string of words all together and say, oh, this might make a good clip. But
Yeah,
in actuality, it doesn't.
it's getting better at mimicking though. Like this conversation's happening now, but like there's already cases where I've seen where it's like, oh, that was an AI video, what? Or
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, so crazy. This is a short tangent, but I'm producing something now, and on the episode, there were comments being like, "It's AI, it's AI." I was like, "Wait, hold on. This this is a real person. They recorded it, and the person's traveling, so the quality isn't the same, and they're saying it's AI." I'm like, "Yo, what has
Mhm.
they done to the robot?" I don't know, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And there's one video I did not know was AI. I probably should have known because after watching it and seeing it in the comments that it was, I was like, oh yeah. But it looked so realistic. It is the a lady, something about oh, it's so powerful. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but it's something like um get away from me, Satan, or something like that. And it's so powerful, and it just basically talks about how this girl has been through so many things and life has thrown so many obstacles in her way, but she's like, you not getting me. Yeah, I
basically,
am powerful. I got, God on my side, and he's going to take me out of all this crazy that you're trying to throw on me. So anyways, it was really powerful. If I find it, I'm going to drop it in the show notes because it was really good. But it just goes to show the power of even AI video that we can use and still be effective. But again, it takes a human to create it, right? And
yes,
it's Daryl also said he agrees unless a good prompt has been crafted. So if you have a good prompt in your clip generator, maybe you might come up with something really great. So yeah, but that's key because garbage in, garbage out. it's, it's
wrong.
what you're gonna get. So prompting is so super important. So as we move on, Walter, talking about podcasting and monetization. And before we move on, Isaiah says AI is getting so advanced that I question every video I watch now,
Man, we
right?
all confused. Experts are confused.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. It's like, wait, what do you mean that's AI?
Mhm.
And so yeah, you have to watch so closely now. And
We
and
really do.
there's certain things that I've learned that you can watch for to see if something is actually real or AI, like how people kind of fade into a background or how furniture kind of moves in front of them and they don't move or something. And they do it even with animals. I mean, y'all, it's a whole thing, this whole AI thing.
It's a whole thing. Yeah, I'm ready for I don't even know. I don't know what the future really is gonna look like, but I know there's an increasing dislike, distrust, distaste. There's also an increase of like reasons to use it in certain use cases as well. And yeah, I'm kind of
Yeah.
just I'm paying attention. I'm sitting and watching and learning and just being prepared.
Yeah, because yeah, it's definitely here. And what we have today is the worst we're going to have. It's just going to get better and better. So
Hmm.
we just have to figure out how to best leverage it. And one of the things what I wanted to ask you from a few minutes ago, you talked about helping a person um, get get their podcast to a point where they were eligible for monetization on YouTube in just like 3 weeks or so. Are you able to share any of the tactics or methods that you use to help them get there, or is that like a secret sauce?
I can share some that would be helpful or more applicable. So this person, so some people I work with are small businesses. Some people I work with are people just kind of starting off, wanting to become influencers, but also work with a lot of personalities. And oftentimes personalities come with following that really trusts and wants to listen to them. But there's also lessons in that as well. Like I've learned that not every following is the same. So when people talk about followers isn't everything, it's partly actually because like people follow for a specific reason and it's important to know what that reason is so that you know
Mhm.
how people will adjust. So part of it was learning and knowing how that following would respond to a podcast that's being launched. For some people, large followings, people rush over instantly. For some, it's like that's cool, but I'm good over here. I'm good on Instagram.
Mhm.
So part of it was creating a system that helped to entice people who were following them for a particular reason to come over to the podcast. And people, that's another area where people make a lot of mistakes. They think like, oh, I'm famous, people know me, they're gonna go listen. That's not always the case. You'd be surprised just how many people start and aren't able to keep the podcast going. So it's partly that, but then also it was knowing which guest to start with. Started with a guest who was had a lot of buzz on social as well. So people thought that person was funny. And
Mhm.
when I created that clip, I try to leverage or lean into like the funny that they both kind of had. So taking those pieces in and bringing them together. And
Mhm.
then there's also this kind of shock value of what they're talking about as well.
Mhm.
Basically use that the couple of those moments to really push. So one, there's excitement because this person's launching a new podcast, but then we didn't just depend on like new podcast, check it out. We started with something that was like what did they just say? So really just diving into that. So that's helpful for entertainment ones. I think for a
Mhm.
lot of because would you say a lot of your audiences are business
Yeah,
focus or
I would say yes.
okay, yeah.
Mhm.
So on the business side of things, it's kind of the same principle. It's launching with the intent of really standing out. So I did that in entertainment with this kind of shock value, not clickbait, but what they were talking about was shocking. And I think for a business side of thing, it's the same thing as shock, but maybe more from a I didn't know this or I didn't understand that. So using
Mhm.
that expertise early on. Oftentimes with long form content as a general rule, it's helpful to start off with the most important and interesting thing because that hooks somebody. And then if you have like, let's say you have like 5 things you want to share with somebody, and there's a scale, right, of like most interesting to least interesting. Wait, most interesting to least interesting. Starting with the most interesting, sometimes people try to say that for the last to tease people, and that is a strategy. But I think another one is actually to start with the most interesting because people are like there, and then there's less scale of need to prove to somebody that this is worth sticking around for. So they'll continue to stay and stay and stay. So I think leaning in with something that's like really interesting, intriguing, that could change the way someone perceives something or understands something, that will signal to them that, hey, this is a podcast where I can come and learn about something that I'm not as familiar about or provides another perspective on something that I'm not as familiar about. So it's still shock, but in a different way. It's like kind of bringing psychology into marketing.
Right. So it sounds like, as I'm hearing you speak, it sounds like the success of a clip or a show is maybe not as much about what is said initially, but how the editor puts it together. You know what I mean? How you can take bits and pieces to pull out the best parts, but it's in that talent and skill that you have to push it all, mush it all together, that it actually resonates with the audience and gets the gist of what it is that they were trying to promote or say.
I
Is
would
that right?
say that for like job security, I would definitely say that. But I think it's definitely that because you could have okay, so you could have a average editor working on an amazing show and the content will do good on social media. I think it's a balance of the two, right?
Mhm.
Because it makes the editor's job a lot easier when you have a lot to pull from. And then at that
Mhm.
point, you're deciding what not to use. So
Mhm.
I
Okay.
think that from a producer perspective, it's helpful to work with the creator of the show to craft the most powerful show that can exist so that post production is a lot easier. Because
Mhm.
there's just, when you have a really high quality, like very well produced show, there's so much more that you can do. So, like, oftentimes, another thing people don't always get wrong or right is they just rely on clips, right? But
Right.
if I know I have a really great show that I'm working with, I could do the clips, but I could also start investing in carousel content and take a whole different approach with carousels than I would clips. I could do so much more. It's like
Mm.
I'm a dancer that knows a lot of different dance moves. It's not like I know how to do like a nice, little two step, but if I was a
Mhm.
real dancer, I could do a lot of other things as well. So
Right.
yeah, it's being able to one produce really great content and pair yourself with a really great content team that kind of knows what to do with that really great content.
Yeah, so important, so important. And so what would you say then is one of the biggest takeaways that you have from helping to grow Urban One's podcast division?
I think one is really helpful to have a really strong launch strategy. People say you can only launch once. I kind of disagree with that. I mean, technically, the newness of it you only happen once, but you can relaunch or re-promote with different strategies. So I would say the biggest takeaway is when it comes to cross promotion and leveraging multiple brands to help with pushing and promoting a podcast at its first launch. At Urban One, I've learned how to pair, strong editorial content, so written articles with podcast launches, how to just uh, leverage all that could be leveraged to help with pushing this to the max, getting things on other interviews. There's a lot of like this full on kind of 360 marketing approach to everything. So I came from a independent world, which is why I'm very big on like, being able to navigate social media. But then after that, I joined this agency to produce business podcasts. So it's like learning how to do this at a enterprise level and kind of predicting how people are going to react to stuff on social media as well, like knowing like if we post this, oh, we're going to get these type of comments, or like, oh, okay, these trolls might be coming, here's how to kind of navigate that as well. So yeah, I would say just the campaign aspect of things is
Yeah.
kind of like a takeaway. And if I was to give someone a particular lesson or something that they could implement regardless of what size and scale, it would be to take the time to put together like a 3-month um, launch plan, because that one helps you to make sure you don't run out of things to post. So you're just ready in advance for anything that can go wrong. Have a plan for that 3-month plan can incorporate like, okay, what happens if week one doesn't go how we expected? Are we prepared for week two? Um, it would include like getting the podcast, like launching that podcast, but also going on other podcasts to help promote it as well. So having like a not just like what to post, what to promote in your own things, but how to really leverage everything that you could touch to make this like the biggest launch of all time. So
Right. So it sounds like there's a whole ecosystem that's involved in making it work. Excuse me, making it work, making it be successful, making it appeal to the greatest audiences. There's not just the content, but there's, the actual show itself, but then how it's promoted, how it's basically followed up, how the next thing is promoted beyond that kind of as a continuation over a 3-month period. Is that kind of the way I should understand that?
yeah, and like that's something like everyone can do, but like when you're with a network, you're able to leverage other podcasts that are a part of your network as well, or other media brands that are part of it as well. Like it's easy to go get a host booked on a radio show or get interviewed by this editorial digital brand that's owned by the network. So it's like
Right.
it's a whole uh, relationships is really what it is, and that's what that ecosystem is. It's like a relationship to other entities and brands that want to support each other.
Right.
to make it bigger. And that could happen now. Like right now, you and I were on this show together, and that's like an example of ecosystem. You talked about Chris before. That's, he's a part of your ecosystem. So when it's time to launch something, it's having that conversation with all the different people, like, hey, this is what I'm working on. Does this align with something you're working on? Can this be shared here? And it's like a vice versa thing. So yeah, your
Yeah.
team ecosystem. I
Yes.
like that real time. I love that. I love that. So yeah, that
Yes,
is
the
something a
ecosystem
lot.
equals the relationships. I love how you brought all that together. That the and it is. How many times have you been on a show and they're like, "Oh, this is such great content," and I see what it is that you're trying to do. I know John and Bill and Joe and they would love to be a part of your show. Would you like an introduction?
Boom.
You know what I mean? I mean, that happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
So these relationships that get built because of the ecosystem, and it's like almost a catch 22. The ecosystem is appealing to the people who you want to have these relationships with. And then once you all get connected, then they want to just kind of enhance and grow and be a part of that ecosystem. And it's just fantastic. And I absolutely love it.
It is lovely. I want to say too, real quick. This is random, but I've enjoyed myself on the show. You're a really great host, and I love just the way you kind of direct conversation, ask questions. So I'm excited that you got into this podcasting space. This definitely suits you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, that just warms my soul. It's like, we all want to feel like we're walking in our purpose and doing what we're called to do. And this does feel good. It feels natural. And thank you so much for saying that. And we work hard. We have an amazing team behind the scenes that are really passionate about helping others get their message out to kind of benefit our audience. And so thank you
It
very much.
shows. It shows. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And Nia's so sweet. She goes, "You're amazing, Renee." Thank you, Nia. You are so precious. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being so loyal. Every month that we are on live, Nia is here and so faithful and loyal and consistent. And I'm so grateful. So thank you so much for that. And I cannot believe, Walter, we have less than 4 minutes for us to learn about boss locks, your business, to find out how we can balance business with creating content and all of the things. Oh my gosh, can we do it?
I think we can. I'm also like, I came just because I was excited to just come on the show, so I'm okay with not promoting as well. But I've been fascinated with stories just as long as I can remember, and I think recently in the past 2 years I realized that what I was doing was telling stories. So I like to help other people with their storytelling. People don't always think about that in the business aspect, but it's true. A lot of what we do in content is sharing stories of like how we've achieved things or just what's happening. That's what people really draw people to. So I like being in position to help people with that, whether it's podcasting, content driven. And I guess the only thing that I would actually like to share right now is I'm working on creating this free community for people who have been working on telling their stories or creating content, but kind of feeling stuck in doing that. This is the first time I've said this publicly, actually, at all. So it's a community called Peer Pressure, and it's really just strictly like what you working on this week? Let's get to it. It's kind of peer pressure. It's not toxic, but it's still like accountability. So that's what I'm working on now. And outside of that, just continue to share stories and content through my channels and brands and everything. So yeah,
Awesome. Wow.
thank you
Well,
for
you
the
heard
time.
it here first. You heard it here first. Yay. I'm so excited that we are honored and privileged to be the recipients of your new venture that you're going on Peer Pressure.
Yes,
And
yes.
people definitely want to stay in touch with you. They want to learn more about that because there are so many people who have the idea of doing a podcast, maybe even done a few. They haven't done anything with them and because they're stuck and they need you, Walter. Where can they find you?
You can find me everywhere you find Renee, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, all the places. You can search Walter Gaynor the second. Boom, right there. That's me. Walter Gaynor the
LinkedIn, got
second.
you.
Yep. I'm most active there out of all the places. People, LinkedIn, if you aren't there, everything people say about LinkedIn is true. All the jokes are real, but it's also a slept on place. So I'd highly recommend checking that out. But yeah, Future of Media, YouTube, Apple, everything like that. And yeah, Instagram, TikTok, it's the Great Walt. But yeah, I like to share stories everywhere, and also I like to know the people who are connecting with me. So if you're connecting with me somewhere, please just DM me, tell me you came from Renee's show, and we could be best friends. But
Really?
yeah.
Right. Awesome. I love that. And Lucille says, hi, Renee. Hey, Lucille. Thanks for showing up today. Appreciate you. You're also a loyal cheerleader. Love you so much. And Juan Alfonso, yes, Juan, reach out to Walt. DM him if you got ideas, if you want to get started, if you want accountability, if anybody wants accountability, Walt is your man. Y'all, Walt, any final closing words?
Man, trust your gut. That's the most important thing when it comes to content. Everything else, you can take it or leave it, but trust your gut. Do what you want. People will tell you that, oh, that won't work. It ends up working for people. I saw some TikTok where a lady filled her pool of 50,000 pickles. I'm about to go watch the long form of that.
I love it. Trust your gut. Well, you were made for something great. So go and be awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.